Today we're out here at Daryn Gardner's place, and we're looking at some of the trials that are in place as part of the area-wide weed management project. And these trials are looking at strategies for people with vineyards and dried fruit in this situation to better manage some of those problem weeds that are problems not only within the vineyard here, but are also a problem in the wider area and also for dryland farmers and things like roadsides and that as well. So the trials here are looking at different herbicide options to control two problem weeds that we've identified, both fleabane as a summer growing weed, but also this patch has got some ryegrass that's been a problem as well. We're not 100% sure why that might be a problem. Is it developing resistance, or if it has there's been some problem with the application. So I might ask Daryn to talk about managing those two weeds and what are your current strategies and what are some of the things in the trials that you're sort of most interested in bringing these weeds under control.
Yeah, well, I suppose I've just done the same as I've always done, the way I weedicided, and it's been large amounts of water and the same chemicals. I only ever use mainly glyphosate because it's fairly safe, but it's not obviously, as we've seen this year, we're not getting the desired result. So it's interesting to look at the different chemicals that you've used to see the different results, but also looking at the costing side of it as well, sort of thing. So hopefully that will improve things.
Yep.
And taking into account now also the water application rate.
Yep. So yeah, there's a few things to work on. Obviously there's a range of herbicides that have been trialled. We're only part way through the trial, so haven't got results yet. But anyone that's interested will be able to go online and actually see the trial firsthand for themselves through one of our immersive ag tours. So put up a link for that, and hopefully you can go online and see what we're up to, and maybe take something away from this this trial. So thanks very much for being involved.
My pleasure. Thank you.
One of the challenges that that we have with weed management in some sectors is that we've got weeds that actually move across locations, and I think one of the things that people need to remember about that is that it's no point complaining about what the council's doing or what your neighbour's doing if you're actually not doing something to manage those weeds yourselves. And for some weeds, we really have to focus on where we might get weeds from. And in the work we're doing in the Sunraysia, the key weed we're working on is fleabane, which is highly mobile and blows from location to location. So, even if you manage it all on your place, you're still likely to get some from outside. But if we can get everybody lifting their management of a weed like that, there'll be less of it in the environment and you've got less chance of having it. The other weed that was part of the program yesterday, because it is a big problem in horticulture, was glyphosate-resistant ryegrass, and we've known this has been a problem for a while. And while it's not quite as mobile as some of the other weeds we talk about, in vineyards there's fewer options available to control it than there is, say, in broadacre. And so part of what we want to look at is, well, what are the options and how do they work? And I think that one of the take-homes that from the trial yesterday was that was a glyphosate-resistant population, because glyphosate didn't control it very well. But some of the other products that we used did a very good job. And even though they're quite expensive, the idea is not that you use them all the time in the vineyard, because the aim of the game with ryegrass is actually to stop it setting seed. So you might really only have to use an expensive treatment once as ryegrass is starting to get up into that flowering stage, and just stop seed set then. So there's a number of strategies can be used from a chemical point of view, but I think you also need to consider what the other options are. And certainly early on in the piece with glyphosate resistance in ryegrass, it's only a few plants in the vineyard. And so if you're seeing a few unusual plants under the vine, just digging them out then and there can actually save you a lot of heartache later on. And part of the value of vineyards is you've always got people moving around quite often during the process. So there's always the opportunity for them to do that. And so it's something that broadacre growers can't do, but people running vineyards can. The other thing I think to think about in vineyard weed management is that you've got those two spaces. So you've got that under vine space, which most people want to keep clear. And that's where a lot of the concentration goes. But sometimes some of these weeds are actually sitting in that interrow area. And so having a bit of a focus on what do you actually want to have in there interrow, and rather than necessarily having it full of weeds, have something in there that's not going to cause you a problem. And so that might be sowing a cover crop in the winter time if you're in that production type system where you'll take that out in spring, or if you want to have a continuous sward, making sure you actually manage that sward and you don't just let it get filled up with weeds. Lastly, a couple of other things about weed management in vineyards. Small weeds are always easier to manage than large weeds. Glyphosate's been really good because it tackles large weeds pretty well. But even some of the weeds that we do get, and I know that evening primrose got brought up yesterday. Locally, they call it clockweed. That's actually hard to control with glyphosate once it gets large. So, going in early is a good strategy. And once you get away from glyphosate, a lot of the other options you have are not that good on really big weeds. So trying to get them out on a smaller weed population, even if it means you've got to put one more control out there, may actually help your long-term weed management. And I think the final thing that we did actually spend quite a bit of time discussing yesterday was about application, getting your application right. Making sure that if you're putting a product out, that it's going in the right place, and particularly around water rates and glyphosate. So one of the issues with glyphosate is it actually needs surfactants to work, and when you use high water rates, you dilute those down. So you can reduce water rates, that works, but you can also, if you can't reduce water rates, just add some more surfactant and you'll actually get some better control out of that. Or even add some ammonium sulfate if your water's just a little bit dodgy, a little bit not perfect, and that'll actually help you control as well. So there's actually lots of strategies that people can use to improve their weed control.